Top memory athletes can memorize the exact order of cards in a deck under 30 seconds. Give them 25 decks of cards and they will recite back to you the exact order of cards in all those 25 decks under 1 hour. Now, are these people geniuses? Do they have like a superhuman or the so-called photographic memory, which by the way does not really exist? The answer is actually no. These people have acquired these skills through immense hard work and using the right techniques, which I will talk about in this video. What's going on, Sapiens? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Arham and I'm a third year medical student at the University of Oslo in Norway. Now, previously I have talked about that how mnemonics are basically any tools which help us memorize stuff. And without these mnemonic tools, the maximum number of digits that most people can hold in their working memories is 7. And this is the reason why telephone numbers were designed to be no longer than 7 digits. Because memorization is a skill which can be acquired, and although I am no memory athlete myself, but all of us in principle can become memory athletes by using the right tools and techniques. Now, even if you do not want to be a memory athlete, but you can still use the exact strategies to memorize material in, let's say, med school or in any other field for that matter. So what exactly are these techniques which I'm talking so much about? There are 2 techniques which are used by most memory athletes. Firstly, the PEG system, which I previously talked about, and secondly, the method of loci, which I will discuss in today's video. Firstly, I'll explain what exactly this method of loci is. Secondly, we will talk about the science behind. Thirdly, I will give you guys a practical implementation or like a practical example of how we can implement this method of loci before ending the video with a summary and a conclusion. The method of loci, which is more commonly known as the mind palace technique or the memory palace technique, is a memorization technique which literally goes back to the ancient Greeks and Romans and is also mentioned in some of their anonymous publications such as Rhetorica ad Herennium. Please don't kill me for the wrong pronunciation. Now, what exactly is this technique? So the idea is that you are associating information that you want to learn to physical locations such as your house, your living room, a library, a cafe, or literally any other place that you are super familiar with. For example, you could imagine Jason Statham sitting on the sofa in your living room so that every time you walk past that sofa or you look at that chair, you are reminded of the promise that you made to yourself of doing 50 push-ups each day. That's me, by the way. So what memory athletes do when they're trying to remember, let's say, a deck of cards, is that they choose a location and they place all those different cards in different places in that location. And then they take an imaginary journey through that location, and as they pass different objects or different places in that location, they are reminded of the exact cards that they placed in that location, and hence that's how they can retrieve the exact order from a deck of cards. Now, the science behind the method of loci is actually quite simple, and that is that we humans remember pictures and images much more easily than we can recall words. So when I say the word helicopter, the first thing that comes to our mind or to your mind is the image of a helicopter and not the word helicopter. So that's like a simple example I can give. Now, I'm sure all of us have been in a situation where a friend of ours is trying to remind us of this thing that happened in the past, but we just cannot seem to recall it. But when they mention the location of where that happened, it suddenly all comes flooding back. And this is because locations and images trigger or cue memories and emotions. However, it is important to highlight that the memory palace technique is not a learning tool itself. However, it is important to organize huge chunks of information that have already been learned so that we can simply retrieve that information that we have learned already at the right place at the right time. This technique can literally be applied to any other field out there, but let me give you guys a quick example of how this can be applied to medical school. So let's say that you are trying to memorize the medications used to treat heart failure. So what you can do is that you place different medications or medicines in different locations of your house. And personally, I like also to create this imaginary story, which makes it a bit easy to remember. So what happens is that I experience a heartbreak because my love has apparently failed and I experience a heart failure. So what I do next is that I head to the bathroom to shed some tears, and bathroom starts with a B, so this reminds me of beta blockers. That's the first medication. So when I'm crying inside the bathroom, I suddenly see this deck of cards which I have placed in the bathroom, and I start playing with those cards. I start shuffling that deck of cards, and while shuffling I come across the card Ace, and Ace reminds me of ACE inhibitors, and ACE inhibitors automatically remind me of all the other medications in that group like ARBs and ARNIs, etc. So what happens next is that I look at the toilet seat and looking at the toilet seat gives me this intense urge to pee. And this intense urge to pee reminds me of loop diuretics. So we can create these weird and absurd stories and then associate those with literally any other physical locations that we are quite familiar with, and then use those as tools to memorize information that we are trying to learn. So the method of loci, which is more commonly known as the memory palace technique or the mind palace technique, is the most commonly used strategy by memory athletes. And this exact same tool can also be used in medical school or in any other field where we need to learn huge chunks of information. The process involves creating images from that information that we are trying to learn, and then associating those images or that information with different locations that we are quite familiar with. And these could be a cafe, our house, our living room, or literally any other place, a library, etc. And I personally also like to add a story to this just to make it more interesting and easier to remember. Lastly, this is one of the best techniques to organize huge chunks of information after that information has been learned. That's a wrap for today, guys. Now, if you found this video useful, then you might also want to check out other videos where I talk about, let's say, other memorization techniques such as the PEG system or acronyms, or other methods which we can use to take our exam performance to a whole new level. Now, if you haven't subscribed already, then please consider doing so, as there is also a lot of other interesting content coming up which will surely add value to you guys. So until then, take care, guys. Peace.